Hello art world, and welcome back to my channel. Going over having a look at one of my drawings. I like to call it the one man band. um, in this video I'm going to be talking about inspiration and some other techniques rather than just diving right into how the things that I'm doing and the techniques or tools that I'm using. I wanted to talk a little bit about inspiration and how I come up with the idea for some of these drawings. So without further ado, here I go. um, I wanted to talk about how I begin these drawings and where the inspiration sometimes comes from. Inspiration comes to me from very simple things in life. The other day I saw a guy mowing his lawn. To me, it just seemed interesting enough, and I drew a picture of an exaggerated version of that. I like to use my art to exaggerate features. I know some artists out there, it's really inspiring what they do, how they use their abilities to make accurate representations of reality, but I like to experiment with the abstract or exaggerated features, things like that, things that wouldn't really happen, like a monkey smart enough to be a traveling band, but I wanted to make that a reality. I guess there are monkeys that can do that. I'm not so sure they would know why they're doing it, but I'm sure they could be taught to. But yeah, this is all part of my process where I'll see something and it becomes the motivation and inspiration for one of my artworks. Something simple. So if you're looking for inspiration, it can be found anywhere, literally. This actually came from an idea I had. I was driving down the road, and sometimes when I'm driving, I think a lot and about my art. And I was thinking, oh, what's my next video gonna be? And I thought, hey, I should embody, what I am, and kind of do a drawing, a representation of what I feel like I am. And I feel like I'm a one-man band. I make videos. I do the drawings, number one. I market myself. I make these videos myself. I built my computer that I'm using myself. I bought all the parts. I scrounged all the parts. So I I've I feel a bit like a one-man band, like I'm doing everything on my own. So that was where the inspiration came from, and it just kind of snowballed into this idea of the archetypal, monkey with a million instruments. And I kind of wanted to make like a little bit more of a chaotic version of this. This kind of ended up becoming a bit simplified, but I wanted more instruments really, and I wanted them kind of overwhelmed with instruments. But that, these mistakes are happy mistakes, and I'll use that in the next one. So when I begin these drawings, I wanted to let you guys know how I really start them. So what I'll do is something called a gesture drawing. And what a gesture drawing is simply really simplistic lines to get an overall idea of the shape of what you want to draw. A good way to begin these gesture drawings or to practice them would be to get a scrap piece of paper and begin drawing lines in every direction. You want to not lift the pencil off of the page once you begin, though. So put the pencil down on the page and start drawing, but don't lift it until you have the completed image. That's a good way to practice these gesture drawings, and you want to have lots of swirling lines that are very loose to try to capture the image without being too rigid. How I decided I liked this image was through these gesture drawings. So what I do is I do several gesture drawings, like thumbnail size, so a smaller size, um, on a piece of throwaway paper, like paper that's very cheap. And I'll just, now I have inherited a lot of paper, by coincidence. It just turned out, someone that I know had a lot of this extra paper that they didn't want, and I jumped on it. As an artist, I said, yep, I'll take that for sure. So I have tons of like this junky paper, and it's very simple, plain white paper, and it's a really good way for me to get my gesture drawings out and to decide on the form that I like the most, and the shape of the character that I'm drawing. So I'll take one of the pages and section it off into maybe 4 or 5 sections sometimes, and I'll start sketching these. Just doing I put the pencil down and I make these squiggly lines until it forms a shape. And then once I have that shape, I build on it and I start. Now, you want to go into it knowing how you want the character sitting already. Like, you want to have an idea of the posture, I guess, to an extent. And you can change it as you're doing the gesture drawing, but you kind of want to have that down the more detailed you become with your gesture drawing. So like the first 6, you might just get the idea for the pose, and then the next 6, like on the back side of the paper, you could flip it over and use the back side of the paper and do a couple more detailed versions of the pose that you've decided upon. So on the front of the page, and it would just be a waste of one sheet basically. I'm not saying to waste it. This is essential. This is what artists do. You kind of need to get used to doing that, wasting a little bit of paper here and there. But in my case, I'm very thankful it was free and it was going in the dump regardless. So I kind of jumped on that. So look for, things like that. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for, deals on paper, or if, maybe you can go to a company and ask if they have any, maybe a company that's going out of business, if they're throwing stuff away that you can repurpose or reuse. That's always a good idea, before you go like buying, paper. Some people might just even give it to you. So in my case, that's what happened. So I lucked out. But yeah, you want to use one sheet of paper basically. Use the front for the 6 panels, mark out 6 panels, and you can decide what pose you like in those 6 panels. And then after that, you've decided, one of the 6 poses that you like the most, whichever appeals to you the most, looks good from a distance. You want to step back, kind of look from a distance, look at it upside down. What has the most, the best looking appeal to you? And you make that decision, and then on the back side, you do 6 more panels with whatever it may be, whatever that pose may be, and you refine it a little bit. And then you decide which one you like the most out of those, and then you make your drawing. Now, I have lately been skipping the whole deciding, because I'm drawing so often as of late. I'm able to now just basically in my head do this. I do these gesture drawings in my head. Like, I'll think about it so deeply that I can imagine it pretty clearly. The shapes that I like, I decide what pose I like the most. And sometimes I can't picture it, so I will draw it out. But yeah, typically now I'm able to just jump right into it. So what I'll do is I'll take one of those scrap pieces of paper and just get right into my gesture drawing of refinement, and I'll start gesturing it in and then refining that, whatever I don't like. But I always do one drawing before I go to my final drawing, before I put it on the good paper, and I use the Copics. Obviously, I get into the whole thing of refining and making the character. I always have a loose sketch of it first, on like junky paper, because it it allows me to work out some things. Like some things, there were some things now looking back that I liked more in the first sketch, that I didn't bring into this one, but there was other things that I didn't like about the first sketch that I eliminated for this sketch. Sometimes it happens that way, sometimes it doesn't. This is the joy of being an artist. Yeah, you have to decide what is best always, and it's constantly changing. What's best for one drawing, it's not going to be for the next, and it's constantly changing, and it's deciding these things. It can be maddening, and it can be annoying, and it can be something you overthink very easily. So what I'm going to tell you is just please don't overthink it. What you see and what you like is what you should draw, and don't let anyone tell you differently. There's nothing specifically that you need to, there's no specific way you need to go about doing anything. If you find a better way than what I'm telling you here, then go for it. I mean, I'm willing to learn yet, and if you have a way, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. But this is my way that I find I'm most productive. And I end up liking my drawing at the end more, than when in the past I used to I would just get right into the sketch right on the page, and I would be erasing so much that I'd be changing it, and then I just wasn't as productive as when I would do the sketch on a loose piece of paper, something, and get the idea out before I go to my final stage. It just has helped me tremendously. It's something that I find very valuable to do now, and it's something that might help you. So if you are the type of artist who erases a lot and likes to change things, or is undecided about some ideas, and it's a really good way to work out those the bubbles, and to really refine your drawing to the point where it can really advance you and your skill level if you just follow these simple tips. Just get it out on the paper first. Decide then what you want to change about it, and then in your final drawing, don't change anything. That once you've decided on your technique and how you're gonna, I wanted, like, for example, here I decided in the initial drawing that this was going to be white and blue, and I was going to use two colors. Let me double check. I believe it's B32 and B34. Yes, B32 and B34. B34 is, I think, the darker one. Whichever one. I use the darker one at the bottom, because his arms, I wanted them to kind of consume the straps in a way, and I wanted darkness to kind of overtake the straps as it vanished into his armpit. So I thought about this well before I started the drawing. I thought about this back when I did the initial sketch. So these are the things I decide well before I begin this final drawing that you see here. So I just didn't want anyone to think that I was just putting these drawings down and they were just happening like this. I'm thinking about this very deeply before I begin. Now, I'm not saying I waste a lot of time thinking. My brain is trained now kind of to the point where I'm considering all of these little details as I'm doing my initial sketch. So it's a really good idea to just constantly train yourself so that these techniques become more automatic. You want them to, you don't want to overthink them. You want it, like I said, to become more automatic. And the only way for that to happen is to just practice your drawing a lot. Every day at least practice a few drawings. It's been a great stress reliever to think about my art more and to start focusing more on it. It has really changed my life. So I really want to spread the message of what art can do for people. I think it's very important. It's a very important tool we have to relax and to find and to have a lot of fun. I think it's very important for people to have fun in life. And this is like a very clean way for someone to have fun that's low risk and just good. I think just overall good for your health. Maybe I'm saying that with a bias because I've always loved art, but I just want to give that to other people. I want other people to try drawing. Even if you're not an artist, give it a shot, see what happens. You might fall in love. I don't think that I ever knew I was an artist until I began drawing. I was very young when I started, but I would stop periodically, sometimes for years. I stopped during high school for a long time and into college, and then I always came back to it. It was always such a nice stress relieving tool and a nice way to go about just having a lot of fun in a very safe, clean way, and is just it's really cool to be able to do that and to spread that message. So here I am working on his little wind-up box that he has on his back, that he's carrying on his back. I suppose he'd be able to wind this thing up and it would play music through that speaker coming out the top. But here I'm using neutral grays. Over the whole drawing, his body is N0, neutral gray 0. The side that I just drew is faded up from neutral 2, and I faded up to N0. On the back side, I wanted a dark contrast, so I used N4, a darker contrast. It's not very dark, but it seems very dark to me. So yeah, N4 there, and then on the top N2 and N0, just faded from side to side. Yeah, now I'm coming in with pencil, and I've spoken about this in my other drawings. This is why I leave everything very loose in the beginning. I try to keep my drawing as light as possible, because when I come back in at this stage with my pen and I start refining edges a little bit, I have a lot of play with where things lie, and I've been having a lot of fun lately with where the color stops. Where the color stops, I can actually go beyond that spot and add pencil and make it look as though there's a highlight there. by just going beyond it a fraction and drawing my line there above it, I can make it look like that's a highlight by using the background of the paper, the color of the natural color of the paper. So yeah, I try to go. I think in the next few videos, keep a lookout. I'm going to ink these instead of using pencil. I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna see what happens. Not yet. I'm not ready yet to move toward that, but I think I am gonna give it a shot and see. I'm gonna probably use. I really don't want to. I'm imagining it now. I'm probably going to end up using micron pens for that to do the outline. Also, another thing I wanted to mention. When I'm using these Copics, I notice it makes a pretty cool effect. If you stop just before you get to the edge, if you look at his back where his ear meets and his strap meets the music box on his back, I left a thin line of the background there. I didn't color that in, like right up to him, right up to his neck, right up to his ear. I left that like gap, and it makes him almost seem like a sticker, like he's stuck onto the paper, and I kind of like that effect. So I've actually used that without knowing that was a technique. I just kind of did that naturally. I've always utilized contrast. I think that's a very important part of drawing. Dark and light and the contrast thereof, like where the dark meets the light. I think it can be a very powerful thing you can utilize, and you can develop your own techniques with how you use that. But I suggest looking into doing that. So here I got a little frustrated. For some of these, before I knew that I could actually flip this in my video editing software, this one I'm actually drawing, these last couple videos as well, I'm actually drawing this upside down. So I'm looking at the top of his head, and it makes it really hard to get proportions, like to see proportions correctly. So you see I'm trying to turn the page, and like I can't figure out where his nose or his nostrils should be. So yeah, this all harkens back to the idea and the inspiration for this drawing. It's the one-man band. That idea struck me because I am a one-man band here on with my platform. It's just me, and I'm editing my videos, I'm filming, I set everything up, I built my computer, I'm making this art, I'm doing everything on my own. I'm literally in in a way a one-man band. So that's why I felt really inspired to do this drawing, because I wanted to draw a little bit of like a version of me. I feel like this is me in a way inside my head, and obviously he's a little better looking than I am, but jokes aside, yeah, I love being inspired by simple ideas like this, like the lawnmower guy, you know. It's just a really good, clean, fun way to spend your time. Actually learning too. I mean, as I'm doing this, I'm learning things. My brain is very active. It's like I actually get very tired after I do sometimes sometimes I get very tired. I feel as like I've like run a marathon after I do a very intricate drawing. So it's a good brain training exercise. Basically, drawing is it's almost like solving a puzzle. You have to figure out, what part goes for where and first and last, and you have to figure out the order of, how you lay colors down to achieve certain effects, and it's a learning process, and there's so much to learn. It's endless. So I recommend everyone, after this video, you pick up a pen and you start drawing. You should feel inspired to by the world around you. It is a great time to be alive and a great place to be. So have fun, and I guess we're getting close to the end of the video. Check me out on smartful_creations on YouTube now, and Instagram. And thanks again for stopping by my channel. Stay safe during the COVID outbreak, and have fun with your art. Leave some messages in the comments below if you'd like. Thanks for listening. Okay, bye.